Hello and welcome to Up the Villa podcast, and it is opposition preview time. And I am taking the helm this week, and I am very pleased to be joined today by my very good friend Chidge, who is a member of the Chelsea Supporters Trust Board, a CFC UK fanzine, and most importantly, Chelsea FANCAST, a channel that I've been lucky enough to be on for a couple of years now, and they are a fantastic channel and a fantastic bunch of guys. So the roles are reversed today. I know I'm entering yours tomorrow for a chat about the reverse of this, so Villa, talking about the Villa. So it's lovely to see you, Chidge. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I mean, yeah, I am. I'm not bad at all because I was at the bridge last night to see us absolutely wallop Middlesbrough. I was trying to think when was the last time we scored 6 goals. So yeah, so I'm basking in the reflected glory of a good performance and another Wembley final for us, which I didn't predict at the beginning of the season. So that's great.
Yeah, I did watch that obviously game because of us playing you on Friday, especially, and I did wonder how strong you would go. Was you pleased with the team selection on that one? With obviously bearing in mind we've got you on the Friday.
Well, yeah, I mean a couple of things, mate. I mean, he has actually tended to pick his strongest side most of the time, which I'm always in favour of in a cup competition. I don't believe in let's just play all the kids because it's only the Carabao Cup. You go into a competition, you want to win it. We've got a fantastic track record in all of these cup competitions, so you've got to take it seriously. The other thing is, I think he's had to do it because we've had so many injuries, so I don't think he's had much
Yeah.
choice. And the third thing is, we've been so up and down and rubbish for a lot of this season. I'd rather see him playing a settled team so they can actually get used to each other and try and get some form together. So for all of those reasons, I wasn't surprised to see it, but I was glad to see it.
Yeah, so moving on to sort of the manager, he's obviously took the reins, and this season it's been a bit up and down, and sort of the start was a bit dodgy. So what are your thoughts on Poch and how he's gone about it this season?
Yeah, I mean, after the Middlesbrough match, there were a lot of rumblings. The hashtag Poch out stuff was going on social media. I mean, look, I'm for him. I'm backing him totally because I really think that at the time we hired him, uh, I think he was about the best we could get. And I know people might laugh at that, but he's got Premier League experience. He did well at Tottenham. He got them in the top four. He got them to a Champions League final. So he's got Champions League experience. He's managed a big club with big stars in PSG. So I think if you add all of that together, I don't think there were many people who I think would have been better for Chelsea at that time. I mean, you can talk about Luis Enrique and all of those guys. None of them have managed in the Premier League, so you don't quite know what you're going to get. So, I think he was
Yeah,
the best manager we could get at the time. And I think he's had a terrible, terrible time because, Newcastle bleat on about their injuries, but we've averaged about 10 players out injured for most of the season. He's lost Nkunku, who was his kind of big buy in the summer, who was supposed to kind of gel it all together up front. We've had maybe like a game and a half out of him. He's lost Reece James. I mean, last night against Fulham, Ben Chilwell started for the first time this season, and he just looked a class above everybody else on the pitch. So you've been missing these kind of calibers of players. So he's had a tough time. You set that against the whole backdrop of the club fundamentally changing since the new owners came along. I mean, it's unrecognizable to the club it was under Roman.
yeah,
So he's really been up against it. He's not been blameless, Justin. I mean, some of his tactical stuff is questionable. I mean, playing Colwill at left back when he's not really a left back. Some of his selections have been a bit weird, but I think he's done pretty well in a very tough job. And now, of course, he's got to a Wembley final. Hopefully that'll take the pressure off him. I mean, we need to win it, obviously, but getting there in the
yeah,
state that we're in is not a bad thing at all.
yeah. I mean, I've been following you obviously on and off all season, and the last few weeks especially, there does seem to be the first semblance of a real structure to the side, the way you're playing. I think that the team selections, whilst you have had a lot of injuries, has definitely settled down a little bit. So do you feel that that's the case?
Well, hopefully. I mean, seeing Chilwell come back is great news. It'd be nice to have Reece James back because you know that this is what's happened. I think you're seeing a lot of players being played out of position, and it just doesn't help. I mean, talking about whether you back Poch or not, I think most Chelsea supporters that I know seem to have more of an issue with the players because a lot of them just don't seem good enough. I mean, to case in point, last night Chilwell comes back, he looks so much better than what we've got, and you're thinking,
Mm.
well, why on earth did we buy half of these players? They're just not good enough, and that's really hard for Chelsea supporters of a certain vintage to see when, the last 20 years, we've seen some absolutely superb world-class players at the club. And now you've got kids who may or may not be good enough. And at the moment, don't look good enough. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, from a sort of outsider's point of view, as a football fan looking at Chelsea, the sort of it seems to be like a pretty scattergun approach to transfers. I mean, we've seen huge amounts of money spent over 2 or 3 windows, I think, since Todd Bowley's come in. And it hasn't always seemed like it's joined up thinking. It's just seemed to be like we'll go and get him, we'll go and get him, we'll go and get him, and then hopefully the manager can sort of gel all that together.
Yeah.
How have you seen the recruitment strategy change since Bowley's come in?
Well, I think it's absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's a massive gamble. You basically look. I mean, if you're Brighton, it's a great strategy. Because there's no pressure and expectation on you. So they've spent £1 billion, which is way too much. They've overpaid for most of the players. Nearly all of them are unproven in the Premier League or Champions League. They're all very young, so you know that they're going to be inconsistent anyway. And then you go beyond that, and you look at the team and you think, where's the height and the physicality in this team? Why didn't anybody think of that one? And then you go, it's just lots of crazy stuff like that. And I mean, it looks to me very much like you said, actually, it's there's no joined up thinking there. There's no kind of, what kind of football does the manager want to play? Are we a passing out from the backside possession type side, or are we a counter attack side? It looks like a lot of players who kind of can fit a lot of different systems, but not necessarily the one that we need.
Yeah, well, that leads me on to my next point. Luckily, is what do we expect to see from Villa from a Chelsea side this week? How do you expect them to play, and what is your style? Would you say after watching them under Poch for almost a season now?
Yeah, well, that's the criticism that's mainly been levelled at Poch, that we don't seem to have any sort of an identity or a playing style. Poch was very much known at Tottenham, wasn't he, for high pressing, aggressive pressing, and a lot of kind of counter attacking. We've got some very nippy wingers, but it's not easy for Chelsea to be a counter attacking side because most teams are going to play on a low block against us. And of course, a lot of the teams that have been successful this season against us have just sat there with 5 at the back, 4 in midfield to break us down. And we don't have the kind of players who are capable. We don't have an Eden Hazard anymore who can just win a game on his own. So we labour against that, passing it side to side to side to side. If we do get wide and we get round you, which is one way to deal with it. Who do we have up front? We don't have a meaty number 9 who can get on the end of a cross. We don't get enough players in the box anyway. There are not enough deep runs coming from midfield where you might be the spare man that can break that block. So it's just there is no style or identity. But I think that's as much as the kind of players that have been brought into the side, as well as any shortcomings for Pochettino. I mean, last night was really odd because they kind of, they were quite slow and laboured at the beginning. Borough kept their shape, and Borough also had a bit of a go for the first kind of 10, 15 minutes. Then we got the goal, and, as so often happens, everything changed. And then we were 4-0 up by half-time. The game's won, really, started bringing on a lot of kids. But what was really interesting was in the beginning of the second half, everybody was pressing really aggressively, and they hadn't been at all in the first half. I mean, what you tend to get with Chelsea is you get maybe one player presses and then the other one forgets, which is not going to work. If you're going to play the pressing game, you've all got to do it. But they all did that in the second half. And I'm thinking, they're 4-0 up. Why have they gone and done that? I mean, it just seems, it's like, what? I don't get it. So, I mean, they do like to build from the back. Petrovic, I mean, Sanchez, takes more risks than he does, which is why he tends to have a rick every game he plays. Whereas Petrovic, I think, has proven a really good keeper, but he's not as good as, being like, the libero, if you like, and like playing out, spraying it around, and getting all the attacks going. He quite often goes long, but I quite like that because I like mixing it up. I'm not a massive possession for the sake of it supporter. It's for me, it's about winning games and scoring goals any way you can. And I think Pep's got a lot to answer for, because I've yet to see many defensive keepers that are really, really good at keeping possession and playing out from the back, particularly if they're put under pressure. And that's the other thing that you can get Chelsea with. If you put them under pressure by really aggressively pressing, they will make a mistake, that defense. So, low block, aggressive pressing, and catching us on the counter. If you want to beat Chelsea, that's the way to do it.
Right, I'll get that over to Unai immediately then and let him know.
I think he might have spotted this already, Justin. Just a hunch.
Probably. I like to think he would have done, yeah. So looking towards the game of the weekend, obviously, what would you say the sort of key players will be for you against Villa? And who would you like to sort of see playing against us?
That's a good question, actually, because I think, frankly, they've all got to be on their game. You're a good side this season. Very, very good side. I've been really, really impressed with what Uno Emery's done. And, bearing in mind he was an Arsenal manager and delighted us that we took the mick out of him while he was there because he was going horribly wrong, and he had his, difficulty with English, the whole good evening thing. So he was a wonderful figure of comedy for Chelsea supporters. But, he's clearly a very good manager. You don't win, 4 Europa League Cups on the spin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't do that if you're not a good manager. But what he's done at Villa has been, I mean, it's almost like the complete opposite of what's going on at Chelsea. You've got a reasonably established squad of players. And you brought in a decent manager who's very, very quickly translated to the players how he wants them to play, got them organised and got them playing really, really well. And bloody hell, you're in the top 4. I mean, huge respect to him. Huge respect to him, But, so it's going to be tough for us. We're really up against it here, I think, which I can't think of too many times in a home FA Cup match, even against the big sides in the past where I thought, ooh, this is going to be quite tough. But I think it will be, because they're a good side. But yeah, as far as we're concerned, they've all got to turn up. I think the absolute key will be the defence. Thiago Silva, I'm presuming he might well go with the same side because Gusto's out injured. So
as Middlesbrough.
Well, pretty much. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about up front yet, but I mean, I'm just thinking of the defence first. If Chilwell's got it in him to start a second match after 4 days, that's the worry for me. But I think if he starts, we look so much better because Colwill could play in central defence where he's better. But if you got the central defence ticking, that's good. Although I do worry about Ollie Watkins. The best midfield we've got is normally Conor Gallagher, Enzo Fernandez, and Moises Caicedo. He didn't play Conor last night. Conor came in the second half, but if they play well, they're good enough to dominate a lot of midfields, that you're going to come up against. So they've got to be on it. But I've seen them where they've completely not been on it. I mean, within the last month, I've seen that. Palmer is probably the key to us. He's our match winner, I think, whether he's creating or scoring. So Palmer's got to have a good game. But the trouble is, everybody else that you're likely to put up front is very hot and cold. Sterling turns up when he feels like it. Massive disappointment for 350 grand a week and the reputation he has. Massive disappointment. Doesn't impose himself on a game invariably. Last night did great, but against a pretty poor Borough side. So he's turn up and have a big game. Mudryk, well, I don't know. I mean, Mudryk reminds me of the kid, when you play football at school and you'd pick a kid because he was really, really fast. And you played him, and you realised he didn't actually know how to play football. I mean, that's Mudryk.
It reminds me of Adama Traore. Mudryk does,
Yeah.
Enormously quick, but an absolutely awful end product.
Yeah, exactly that. Brozier, I mean, I don't know what's going on with him. He's a young kid, but he had that horrible injury. I don't know if that's still playing at the back of his mind, but his confidence is on the floor. So, that's our only fit striker, apart from David Washington, who's like, who the hell is he, So, and you got Madueke, who again blows very hot and cold, is inexperienced, got a lot of talent, but, will give the ball away, will fall over too easily, but can score an amazing goal, but he's very mercurial. So I think that the issues we've got are still very much, who's playing up front. But if the defense is solid and they're on their game and don't make stupid mistakes, if Moises and Enzo and Connor can, impose themselves on the game, then, you'll have a tough match.
Yeah. You've been linked with one of our players, actually, a little bit, not the strongest of links, but John Duran.
Duran. I thought
yeah.
We've been linked with John Taylor.
Yes, not yet. He might be better off with John Taylor, to be honest.
Well, who knows? I mean, people rate him. I mean, I've heard other people that are interested in him, and they rate him.
He's a bit of an enigma, if I'm honest. Yeah. I think there's been a few bits and bobs coming out of Villa, unconfirmed that he's. I'm not going to say troublemaker. I don't think that is. He's very young. He's very green. He's very keen as well, and you can tell he just wants to play. But obviously, the way we're playing, he's not really getting many minutes. He gets minutes off the bench and stuff, and when he does start games, he gets taken off, and you can see he's incredibly frustrated. He's like an unpolished diamond. There's a lot of potential there for his age. Yeah. But when he comes off the bench, he's either, I think Villa fans think he's either going to score an absolute beauty or he's going to get sent off. That's the sort of the two ends to Duran. He's very impetuous. So I just wondered what you thought and whether you'd heard anything at your end that there was anything there.
Only kind of the odd rumour. I mean, we need bodies up front. I mean, Jackson's away at AFCON.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got to say, Justin,
have you missed him?
It's a really good question. I think he's pony. I'll leave it at that. But
yeah,
I mean, he takes more touches than I would, for God's sake. I mean, there's something very wrong about him as a striker. But I think in mitigation, two things. One is he's not a number 9. He plays off the striker. So, and that's why he was really bought. He's had to play number 9 because, we just don't have anybody. And also, he scored a decent amount of goals for his first time in the Premier League. So, at the end of the day, if you're a striker, you're paid to score goals, and that's what he's done. So I would mitigate it with that. Brozier, as I said, just isn't firing at all, looks absolutely bereft of confidence. I mean, Pochettino was saying about him the other week that he's got to smile and enjoy it a bit more. And you do see him and he gets at himself if he misses an easy chance and whatever. So I think you would question his mentality as well. If he's really, is he up to it at this level? So, that's we need people. But what we don't need, absolutely, completely and utterly, 100,000% don't need, is another bloody inexperienced footballer in the Premier League who's about 21 or 22. We need a war horse, we need a warrior. We need somebody who's about 28, 29, who's been there and done it, knows how to play the game.
Has Benzema been linked with you? I know he's been sort of hawked around a few clubs.
Well, again, yeah. I mean, vaguely, but I you know what I'm like. I tend to ignore all the rumours until they turn up and I see them play at Stamford Bridge, and they go, "Oh, right, okay,"
yeah.
So, I mean, Benzema
of that sort of quality and sort of history and experience. Is that what you're sort of alluding to, rather than like going out and signing the next big thing from whoever at £70 million and hoping they're going to turn out to be the man?
Well, that's been the strategy at the club, and it's why we're in the pickle that we are in. And this is why there's such a disconnect. Excuse me, such a disconnect between the supporters and the club, because we don't want to wait 2 or 3 years before we're any good or we're back in Europe. We've been used to being in it every year, so why should we be
spoiled, Chidge? You've been spoiled.
We have. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, no, I won't lie.
Yeah.
I'm as entitled as all the
Yeah, yeah,
people that you expect to be entitled, who are the kids. But remember, I was also there when we were absolutely rubbish in the 70s
yeah.
and the early 80s. So I don't see why I should have to suffer it again, So it's an experiment.
Spoken like a true fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's an experiment. Why should I be subject to their experiment?
Yeah,
The squad is crying out for experience and leadership. And the reason they don't have experience and leadership, because of the direct recruitment strategy of the club.
yes. So sort of leading away from that, or on from that, shall I say? Are you worried about the FFP, and you worried about these charges that are sort of coming down the line? You seem to be in a bit of a. I mean, I don't really know that well, but you seem to have Forest and Everton who have breached FFP, and then you seem to have Man City who've got 100 odd charges against them. Where do you think that this leaves Chelsea with what seems to be coming down the line for you as well?
Well, what we're being investigated for are infractions on FFP under Roman's time that
Right.
Clear
So
Lake,
historical ones, yeah.
yeah, Clear Lake discovered it, I think, in their due diligence, and I think I'm led to believe they put about 100 million away to cover any fines as a result of anything that they turned up. So these are not current issues; they're all historical. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not worried about what might be coming, but it's not because I think that we've broken FFP yet. I mean, we've got the issue obviously over the last 2 or 3 years, but I think a lot of that can be written down to COVID to a degree, but more seriously down to the sanctions, where we were just denied any income for about 6 months. So if we get penalised because of that, then that is just outrageous, frankly, because the government forced that on the club. So to get penalised for
Yeah.
that would be very unfair. I think the other issue, and everybody talks about this, if you're not, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear what you think, because this is kind of what we get from other fans, is that, well, you spent £1 billion, how can you not, be falling foul of FFP? Well, we're not yet, but that billion's been spent on the basis that we get into the Champions League,
Yeah.
right? And we increase our commercial revenue. So I would say we are at risk if we don't get into the Champions League and we don't increase the commercial revenue. And of course, we might not get into the Champions League. And if you're playing rubbish, your fans aren't going to spend as much money. It's as simple as. So they won't improve the commercial revenue. And of course, that means that what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to sell all the homegrown talent that we've got, that we love very dearly. People like Conor Gallagher, people like Brozier, people like Chaloba. Matson's gone, So, and then you'll get an even bigger disconnect between the club and the supporters, because they're saying, why are you selling these guys that we want to see make it and break through into the club, who are actually all right? Again, we're having to sell it because you screwed up, because you spent £1 billion on a load of, no marks who haven't turned up and delivered.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like a game of roulette, really, where they've played the hand, and they've put all the money on one number, and they're hoping that it's going to pay off by regaining the Champions League positions. Because if it doesn't, I know they've used amortisation, I think it is, with the likes of Mudryk, so giving him a really long contract, which has now been, they're not allowed to do that anymore. So you're stretching these huge transfer fees over 7, 8, 9 years, which helps obviously with FFP in the short term. But what that comes down the line in the long term is the commercial revenue that Chelsea have always been used to, by being in the Champions League and by being in London, which obviously brings in these huge revenues by allowing to selling to corporates and boxes and all these things. That's when the problem will come. So I think, like, you're right. I think if nothing changes, if you have another 18 months, 2-3 years of sort of sitting around where you are outside of all European competitions, I think there's a big problem coming down the line. But I think Todd Bowley sort of played his hand early by going big in the transfer market, and it could backfire dramatically in, say, 18 months' time. Do you agree?
I totally agree with that. I mean, exactly. They've taken a massive punt. They've taken a gamble, which is what these kind of people, they're all hedge fund capital, investors and financiers. That's what they do. They're punters, and they've taken a massive punt, and it might not go right. And, talking about increasing the commercial revenue, I mean, they've cut back throughout the club on a lot of things. There've been cutbacks all over the place, staff, you name it. they're well. I mean, I think inevitably they will increase the season ticket prices. I mean, it's not confirmed yet, but given that Roman froze them for all but one of it, something like 12 years in a row, he never increased them. I mean, I see a lot of this creating an even bigger disconnect with the supporters. I mean, they're already, kind of ramping up prices all around the ground. They're looking at variable pricing. They've got this ridiculously stupid dugout club thing where all the seats around the dugout are now sold at a massive premium, like $1,000, and you get a bit of hospitality with it. So it's really annoying the supporters. And then I don't know if you're aware of this, but they had they're obviously some film company paid them lots of money so they could promote the film during a match. You had all these guys in the dugout club brushing their teeth and reading books. I mean, what's that all about? They had a
sorry, Chidge, is that £1,000 per game?
I'm not sure of the exact price. It might be about £600 for a seat there, and a bit
each game for a game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is
because there's a sort of bit of a thing going on with Villa fans at the moment, with obviously how we've sort of improved over the last, quickly improved into Champions League positions, but we're now seeing a point where the commercial revenue has got to catch up very quickly to the likes of Chelsea, and fans aren't happy with it. We're nowhere near the levels what you've just explained there with a £600 ticket behind the dugout. So it just shows you that if you don't have success on the pitch, there are very few avenues then to increase your revenue.
Well, I mean,
and it's the fans that always take it in the neck at the end of the day.
Well, they are, and a lot of us are a bit old. We're a bunch of old farts. I mean, we've got the highest age of season ticket holder in the Premier League. I mean, I think it's my age. Funny enough, I'm 58, so it's old. So we're a bunch of grumpy old gits. So we don't like change. We don't like anything vaguely new. So you're going to get a lot of grumbling. And I mean, the thing is that Chelsea are way behind a lot of other Premier League clubs in terms of the way they commercialize everything. And I think a lot of this was because Roman, I mean, they did try a lot. I mean, it's not like they didn't do anything commercial, but I don't think Roman was ever that bothered, because it was, for him, it was all about the game, Yeah. So I'm just trying to find out
Especially when you look at what happened at Spurs as well. I mean, I've been to the new stadium this season. It's Tottenham, and it is incredible. That the 2 years they spent away seems like very, very well spent. The stadium is phenomenal, and their sort of income now has gone stratosphere. So we're all sort of playing catch up to that level now, aren't we?
Well, we are, and I mean, I think I kind of mentioned it a minute ago when Roman was in charge, it felt. I mean, it wasn't, because I think you could say that this has always been the case since the Premier League years. It is about the money, whether we like it or not. But I think since the new lot have come in, we're all very, very, very aware that it's all about the money. It's not a football club anymore. It's a business / global brand. So and they're going to do everything that they can to expedite that. And as I said, it's just another example of the disconnect between the supporters and the people that are running the club. I'm desperately trying to find the prices for the dugout, but I can't. But I think maybe not £1,000, but I think maybe 600. Certainly, I mean, we've got this area called Westview, which is in the middle of the upper tier of the West Stand, and actually, this wasn't the Clear Lake who did that. This is under Roman. They basically, grabbed hold of the middle section of that and tripled the season ticket prices. And what you get is access to a bar.
That's it.
Wow. So
you
£300 for a seat.
Do you see a stadium rebuild for Chelsea?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I like Stamford Bridge as it is. I won't lie. I've been sat in my seat since that stand was built. Well, actually, the bit that I'm sitting in was built kind of later on, but that's neither here nor there. So, and I've obviously been going for many, 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 many years before that. So I love it as it is. But the reality, the commercial reality and the competitive reality is that if you're, I think we get about 80 odd million a year from ticket sales. Arsenal and Spurs are getting 125. You've got a 55 million quid a year mismatch going on. Long term, that's not going to do you any good. So the commercial reality the football reality is that we need a bigger stadium so that we can generate more money. The big issue really is, do they knock it all down and build a new one there, or do they relocate? There are very few places to relocate, if any, that are nearby. The only one that people are talking about is Earl's Court. Earl's Court is owned by the Earl's Court Development Company, and there's a big planning application that's gone in for a big residential and retail kind of expanse there. It's a huge site. It's more than big enough to much bigger footprint than Stamford Bridge, so it'd be perfect for a football club. And actually, it's probably the only location that would be acceptable to a majority of supporters, because it's in the manor. You can go to the same pubs. Very important.
Yes. I totally agree.
But whether the club will be able to, somehow intervene and get planning permission away from the Earl's Court Development Company and get it from what is probably going to be a Labour council, who they can't pay backhanders to, allegedly. It looks very, very, very hard on the surface for that to happen. So the more likely plan would be to rebuild Stamford Bridge. It's not cost effective or even practically effective to do it stand by stand like Liverpool have done. So you'd have to knock it all down and rebuild it from scratch. They've just bought the place called the Stoll Foundation. So it's a wonderful charity that looks after homeless veterans. In fact, actually on the Supporters Trust, we do a sleep out every year and the money we make from that goes to them. So we've got a good relationship with them. They've just bought them out because their facilities are getting old and they want somewhere shiny and new. But that would actually give us a bigger footprint. So it's making it more possible to actually have a new stadium there. But Justin, this is going to cost, I'd say, $1 billion, maybe $2 billion to do. And it's going to take 5 years minimum to do it. And that's from when you start. And there is no plan. There is no planning application. Nothing has gone in. And, you have to say, okay, we trust that their intentions are honourable. But, I'm old enough to remember Marler Estates, who were the people who owned the ground before Ken Bates. And they were trying to flog the club and the ground. We were going to become Fulham Park Rangers, all that nonsense, merge with them. And they wanted to sell the real estate because it's prime real estate in Chelsea. It's worth a fortune.
Yeah.
And that's why Ken Bates basically invented the Chelsea pitch owners. So the Chelsea pitch owners, and I am a share in the Chelsea pitch owners, we basically own the freehold to the ground and the name Chelsea FC. So nothing can happen to that ground unless there's a vote and 75% of Chelsea pitch owners, agree to whatever, is being tabled. And we're the only club in the league that have this protection. It's absolutely bloody brilliant. If you want to thank Ken Bates for anything as a Chelsea supporter, it's this. And frankly,
sounds phenomenal.
Yeah,
power to the fans.
Yeah, exactly. And frankly, when you've got a bunch of American financial money men, hedge funders in charge, and one of them on the board is a property developer and a Spurs fan, I hasten to add, I don't really trust them, Justin.
No. That's what I'm saying. I don't blame you. Yeah, I mean, you're in a very similar position to us stadium-wise. You need a bigger stadium. You look at what's happening with the Everton stadium, obviously the Spurs stadium. City's been expanded a few times. Now I'm sure that, United have got Jim Radcliffe in, that's going to be done as well. So you've got to, and we have to find a way to expand the stadium. Otherwise, you just stand still. It's a bit of a nightmare situation, but we're in a very similar position to you again, is that you've got all the houses around and our footprint can't really, grow much bigger than it currently is. So it's another thing that's been swirling around Villa with this improvement, and where we are is that's coming down the line at some point and something has to give.
It's a great ground, Villa Park. I mean, it's an absolutely. I'm actually planning to I'm going to hopefully get tickets for the away match this season. It's a great ground.
But might actually finally meet up, Chidge.
Well, I know. I was thinking of that because I'll stay out with my mate who lives in the Jewellery Quarter. So I'm going to try and get him a ticket, actually. But anyway, Yeah, it's a great ground, and I hear what you're saying. It's a difficulty with the footprint because you're also in the middle of the community, like we are.
Yeah,
But there's something, Roman's original plan was to build down, and he had to do that
yes,
because we
I
can't
saw
build.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, you have to
it's the
have a
height, isn't
view.
it?
Yeah, from
Yeah,
Richmond Hill to
is
St
it
Paul's.
Richmond Hill? That's it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that. St
yeah.
Paul's. Yeah, yeah. What
So
a strange quirk again.
yeah, so we've got an additional problem that you just can't build up. You can't build bigger
Right.
stands up like Liverpool did, for example. But I'm wondering whether you might be able to do that. You might be able to, the footprint might be big enough for you to
Potentially.
rebuild like that.
Yeah, it's something I think that will come to the fore over the next 12 months. I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm just conscious I've kept you for long enough. Just
Right, mate.
give me one more thought then about the game on Friday. Your quick thought on the Villa. I know you've covered us a little bit, and how you think it's going to go.
Well, as I said, I think the two standouts, well, three standouts for me at Villa are Martinez, who I think is world class and a pain in the arse. He's
Spot on both counts.
yeah, he's I love him. I mean, if he was on my side, I'd love him. If he's not, you'd hate him.
Yep,
He's a
yep.
damn good keeper. John McGinn. You wouldn't have thought that, would you? But I think he makes Villa tick, and he's an irritant as well. He's aggressive. I like that,
Yep.
and he scores goals. Against us particularly. And Ollie Watkins is frightening. He's a good striker, and he's got pace to burn. He knows how to finish as well. So those are my three worries about Villa. I think for us, we've got to be rock solid at the back. We a lot of times we conceded this season are through errors that were avoidable. Poor marking, poor positioning, poor touch, clueless Keystone Cops defending. If you want to win against teams like Villa, you can't afford to do that. So they've got to be solid. As I said, the midfield need to impose themselves on the game. And the main thing, Justin, for Chelsea Football Club at the moment, somebody needs to put the ball in the back of the net.
Well, I
we
hope
can
they
do
don't do
that.
it on Friday. But you've got a big game coming up next week. We've got Newcastle on Tuesday, but you go away to Liverpool on Wednesday. So, lots of big games coming up. So, one last thing then, Chidge, give me a prediction. I know what this prediction is going to be, so I'm not going to be surprised.
You know that I'm not going to predict anything other than a Chelsea win. It would be,
I wouldn't expect anything less.
But it's going to be a really tough match for us. And I think the other thing that worries me about it is, sometimes close matches like this are decided by who wants it more. So we've got to really want it as well. So given all the things I've just said and the desire to go and win it, I think we can edge it. But it'll be edge it. It'll be a 1-0 or a 2-1. It won't. It'll be tight. That's my prediction.
Okay. And are you getting up for the cricket in the morning?
Given that it starts at 3:45, no. But I will. I thought of you actually. Funny enough, I was flicking through. I was flicking through Sky to see when it started, and then I realised it's not on Sky. So
no, it's on there.
Yeah, but no, I will. I will be. And of course, the greatest man in the universe. I saw that you interviewed him. I'm so jealous. Chris Wokes, the nicest man in cricket.
The nicest and a massive Villa fan, and he's a lovely bloke. I've kept in touch with him since we've spoken, so it's been amazing. So it was a real pleasure to get him on. So So Chidge, thank you very much for your time. Always love talking to you. Any Villa fans that want anything Chelsea related, please go and have a look at the Chelsea FANCAST. A great bunch of guys. They really know their stuff, as Chidge has proved tonight. So thanks again, mate, and I'll see you tomorrow night when I'll return the favour and I'll come and chat Villa on the FANCAST.
You will indeed. I'm looking forward to that already, mate. Good to